Welcome back. Have you ever wondered what kind of lives the apostles lived before they followed Jesus? Most of the time, we think of them as spiritual heroes preaching, healing, walking with power. But what were they doing before all of that? What kind of jobs did they have? What did the apostles actually do for work before they became followers of Christ? Today, we are diving into a question many people overlook. They were ordinary people with very real jobs. And those jobs, those everyday skills, played a powerful role in how God used them. You may be surprised to learn that they weren't scholars or religious elites. Part 1. The fishing business 0:45 to 2 o'clock. Let's start with the most well-known group: Peter, Andrew, James, and John. Now, that might sound simple at first, but these men weren't just casually catching fish for dinner. They were fishermen. A few verses later, James and John are seen mending their nets with their father Zebedee. This wasn't a hobby, this was a family business. In Matthew 4, we see Jesus calling Peter and Andrew while they were actively casting their nets. Luke 5 even tells us that during one of their fishing trips, they caught so many fish that their boat started to sink. You don't get that kind of catch with a fishing pole on a dock. He knew how to manage records, calculate taxes, and deal with both authority and clients. He was taking their experience, teamwork, perseverance, strategy, and redirecting it toward people. They owned boats, they had equipment, they worked as a team. The same mind that once managed Roman taxes now recorded the teachings of the Savior. They worked for the Roman Empire, collecting taxes from their own people and often charging extra to keep for themselves. They were used to early mornings, long hours, and unpredictable outcomes. Sound familiar? These men understood hard work. Paul didn't rely on donations to fund his ministry. He worked with his hands, not just to make a living, but to avoid being a burden to others. When Jesus called them to be fishers of men, he wasn't just giving them a metaphor. In Acts 18, we learn that Paul made tents to support himself while he preached the gospel. He worked alongside Aquila and Priscilla in this trade. God didn't ask them to erase who they were, he repurposed what they already knew for a greater mission. Part 2. Matthew the tax collector 2 o'clock to 3:30. He uses carpenters, accountants, nurses, artists, farmers, and yes, even fishermen and tent makers. He modeled a lifestyle where work and witness were inseparable. Next, we meet Matthew, also called Levi, a man with a very different kind of business. Matthew was a tax collector. Back then, tax collectors were known for being corrupt. But don't miss this. Matthew was smart. He understood money. When Jesus passed by and said, "Follow me," Matthew left everything behind: his desk, his coins, his security, and followed. And later, he wrote the Gospel of Matthew, an organized, structured, detailed account of Jesus' life. What others saw as a greedy occupation, Jesus saw as a sharp mind ready to be redeemed. Part 3. Paul the tent maker 3:30 to 5 o'clock. Now let's talk about Paul, not one of the original 12, but a foundational apostle in the New Testament. Paul was highly educated, yes, but also incredibly practical. Tent making was a skilled job. It involved cutting, stitching, measuring, and selling. This concept, now often called tent making ministry, shows that your career and your calling can work together. Paul's job didn't get in the way of his ministry, it was part of it. Closing encouragement 5 o'clock to 6:30. So, what's the takeaway? Your job matters to God. He doesn't just use pastors, preachers, and missionaries. Whether you're behind a desk, in a classroom, managing a business, or fixing engines, your work has eternal value when you invite God into it. The apostles weren't called because they were unemployed. They were called while they worked. So don't look at your job as a distraction from your calling. It might actually be the place where your calling begins. Do what you do with excellence, walk with integrity, and trust that God can use your trade, your talent, and your time to do something greater than you imagined.